Alright, let's talk about the Roman Empire. Specifically, the pointy, miserable end of it. The frontier. When you think of a Roman soldier on a distant wall, you probably picture something epic. A stoic figure in gleaming, segmented armor, scarlet cloak billowing in the wind, staring out from a magnificent stone battlement. He's the guardian of civilization, the lonely hero holding back the tide of chaos. He looks determined. He looks noble. He looks like he's posing for a movie poster. That's the myth. It's a fantastic story. It's also complete and utter nonsense. The reality, especially here in northern Britannia around 80 AD, is less of a heroic epic and more of a prolonged, damp and deeply uncomfortable workplace accident. You think you'd be that hero, that you'd stand firm against the barbarian hordes. Let's be brutally honest with each other. You wouldn't last a week. You'd probably beg to be sent home after the first hour, citing dampness and a distinct lack of artisanal coffee. So, let's do away with the fantasy. Let's put you there, not as a hero, not as a legend, but as you confused, cold and profoundly out of your depth. You're a legionary, or more likely an auxiliary, and your name is something you can barely pronounce anymore, because everyone just calls you by a nickname that roughly translates to the unlucky one, or, as you've come to call it, the great grey misery. There is no magnificent stone wall here. Not yet. That's a project for a future emperor with a better marketing team. Your section of the frontier is a series of hastily constructed wooden watchtowers. Tower, it's a box. A crude wooden crate on stilts. About 10 feet by 10 feet. It's less of a fortress and more of a garden shed with delusions of grandeur. The wind, a constant, howling entity that seems personally offended by your existence, doesn't just whistle past the walls. It shoves its way through the gaps between the rough, hewn planks. Each gust feels like a physical blow, a frigid, wet hand pressing against your back, searching for the seams in your tunic, the gaps in your soul. The entire structure groans and sways with a sound like an old man getting out of a low chair. You've stopped worrying that it will collapse. Now you almost hope for it. At least that would be something different. It's night, or it might be day. The sky is a uniform, oppressive ceiling of the only light in your little box comes from a small iron brazier in the corner. This is your central heating, your premium feature. And it's failing. The fuel is wood you gathered yourself earlier, hacked from the perpetually damp forest that looms just beyond the cleared ground around the tower. It's green. Instead of a cheerful flame, you have a sullen, smoky pile of embers that hiss and spit like a cornered cat. A thin, acrid ribbon of grey smoke coils towards a hole in the roof, but most of it decides to stay with you for company. It stings your eyes, making them water constantly. You blink, and a tear traces a clean path through the grime on your cheek. The smell is overpowering, a combination of wet smoke, damp earth, and something vaguely like burning moss. It's a smell that clings to everything. Your clothes, your hair, the inside of your nostrils. You will smell of this smoke for the rest of your life. However short that may be, you're wearing iron-plated gloves, the kind usually reserved for engineers or artillerymen. They're cold, heavy, and awkward. You have them on because your hands are so numb from the cold that you can barely feel. Without the gloves, holding anything metal would be a special kind of agony. In your hands, you hold your gladius, Your short sword and a whetstone. Shh! A grim, repetitive, mind-numbing ritual. It's the ancient equivalent of refilling the stapler. A necessary, but utterly soulless, piece of admin. The stone grinds against the steel, scraping off tiny particles of metal. The sound is steady, monotonous, the only rhythm in a world of chaotic noise. Fish cafe hits a sound that says, I am still here. Fish cafe. Fish cafe. It is the sound of anxiety given a purpose. You stare at the blade as you work. It's not the gleaming, flawless weapon of the parade ground. This is a tool that has seen work. The surface is scarred with tiny nicks and scratches, a dark patina of age, and use dulls its shine. Except for the edge you are now painstakingly restoring. That edge glints in the pathetic firelight, a thin silver smile in the gloom. This sword is your colleague, your only reliable partner in this whole enterprise. It doesn't complain about the cold. It doesn't ask stupid questions. Its only demand is that you keep it sharp, because a dull sword is just a poorly balanced metal stick. A dull sword will get you killed in a way that is not just painful. Your centurion would be furious. As you work, you become aware of the 1,000 other miseries of your own body, your personal ecosystem of suffering. There's the itch. It starts as a faint tickle on your scalp. You try to ignore it. You focus on the blade. Fish cafe, but the itch persists. It blossoms. It moves down your neck. It's a frantic, desperate, crawling sensation. Lice. You have them. Every own has them. They are as much a part of the uniform as the leather straps of your armor. They live in the seams of your clothes, in your hair, in your beard. They are your tiny six-legged tenants, and they don't pay rent. You can't get rid of them. You can wash your tunic in boiling water back at the fort, and for a day, maybe two, you feel a glorious itch. But then you stand next to someone, or you lie down on your straw, stuffed mattress, and the colonists return. You want to take off your helmet and your tunic and just rake your fingernails across your skin until you bleed. But you can't. You're on duty, and you're wearing iron gloves. So you just sit there, shifting your shoulders, trying to rub your back against the rough wooden wall of the sentry box. It provides a moment of dull, unsatisfying relief. The itch laughs and moves to a spot you can't reach, somewhere in the middle of your back. It's a form of psychological warfare, and you are losing. Then there's the hunger. Your last meal, hours ago, was Faypol's Fay, the legionaries' staple. Think of it as porridge. Sometimes, if the quartermaster is in a good mood, they might throw in some beans or a few scraps of salted pork. Today was not a good mood day. Today it was just the sludge. You ate it because you had to, scooping it out of your bowl with a piece of hardtack bread that could have been used to grind the grain in the first place. You chew, and you chew, and you chew, and the bread just seems to get bigger in your mouth. You think about food, not this grey paste. Real food. You're from southern Gaul, and your mind conjures up images of roasted chicken, of bread that is soft on the inside, of cheese that doesn't taste like salt and regret. The memory is so vivid, so painful, that it's almost worse than the hunger itself. You swallow, and the taste in your mouth is just smoke and grit. You're thirsty too. Your water skin is next to you. You could take a drink, but you know what's in it. the official sports drink of the Roman army. Then, for a little extra kick, throw in some herbs you found on the side of the road. The result is a lukewarm, acidic beverage that tastes like someone tried to carbonate battery acid with a dead mouse. It's supposed to be refreshing and kill bacteria in the water. The good news is, it probably does kill the bacteria. The bad news is, it feels like it's doing the same to your stomach lining. But it's wet, and it's all you have. Your whole body is a map of discomfort. The leather straps of your Fey Lorica Hamata Fey your mail shirt chafe your shoulders raw, even through the wool tunic every time you shift. You feel the familiar sting. Your feet. You know that when you finally take the sandals off, your feet will be pale, wrinkled, and smell like a swamp. You probably have a new blister forming. You can almost feel it. A hot little spot on your heel. A future promise of pain. The cold has worked its way deep into your bones. This isn't the crisp, clean. This is a damp, clinging, parasitic cold. It saps your strength. It makes your joints ache with the premonition of the old man you'll become. You lift your head and stare out through one of the narrow slits in the wall. The world outside is a churning mess of grey and black. The wind tortures the stunted trees and whips the long grass of the moor into a frenzy. It looks like a stormy sea. Nothing moves out there. And that's what scares you. Boredom is the enemy you fight most often. Hours and hours of absolute nothing. It's a heavy, suffocating blanket of monotony. But underneath the boredom, coiling like a snake, is fear. You know it's not. They are out there. The locals. The Caledonians. The painted men. You've never seen one up close. They don't march in formation. They don't believe in honourable face. To face battle on an open field. That's your way. That's the civilized way to them. It's just stupid. They are part of this landscape. They move through it like water. You move through it like stones, loud and clumsy. They know every dip in the... They don't attack the forts. Not usually. That would be suicide. Instead, they hunt. And you are the prey. They watch the patrols. They learn the routines. They never found the other two. Or maybe they did. The day before yesterday, the morning patrol found something tied to a tree just beyond the clearing. It was a legionary's helmet. It was filled with blood and black feathers. A message. This isn't a war of conquest. It's a program of corporate intimidation, and the locals are running it with terrifying efficiency. You strain your ears, trying to separate the normal sounds of the night from the sounds that mean death. Every snap of a twig, every cry of a night bird, every sudden gust of wind, that sounds like a whisper. Is it them? You grip the hilt of your now very, very sharp sword. The metal is cold, even through the glove. You let out the breath you were holding, a shaky, visible plume in the cold air. You feel like a fool. You are here in this miserable box because an emperor you will never see in a city you have only heard stories about decided that this rain-sodden, God-forsaken island was a vital part of his glorious empire. You are here for Roman prestige. At least, that's what the centurion tells you before he docks your pay for having a spot of rust on your belt buckle. The ultimate gig economy. They promised you steady pay, food, and a plot of land and Roman citizenship at the end of it all 25 years. It sounded like a long time when you signed up now. Sitting in this box, listening to the wind. It sounds like an eternity. An impossible, unattainable fantasy. The retirement plan seems to be based on the assumption that you won't live long enough to collect. You finish sharpening the blade. The edge is a perfect razor. Thin line of light. It's sharp enough to shave with. The sound of the metal sliding into the leather and wood scabbard is a dull final fey-hump fade. The task is done. And now there is nothing. Nothing to do but sit and wait and listen. You pull your damp wool cloak tight around your shoulders. It doesn't offer much warmth. It smells of wet dog, smoke, and you. You think of your bunk back at the fort, a wooden plank with a straw-stuffed mattress. That's probably full of the same lice that are currently exploring your torso. You think of the cacophony of 100 other men, snoring, coughing, and muttering in their sleep. You think of the smell of the latrines, a permanent miasma that hangs over the entire camp. It's a horrible place. And right now, you would give anything to be there. At least there, you are not alone. The loneliness is a physical presence. Are they warm? It took 6 months to get there. You told them you were well. You told them the army was a great opportunity. The itch, the cold, the hunger, it all vanishes, replaced by a pure, white, hot surge of adrenaline. The kind of absolute silence that means something is holding its breath along with you. And that's the job. That's the reality. It's not about glory. It's not about courage. It's about surviving moments like this. It's about the gnawing dread, the constant discomfort, the bone, deep weariness, and the endless sharpening of a blade you pray you'll never have to use. It's about being a tiny, replaceable part in a giant, indifferent machine that has ground up millions of men just like you. So, the next time you find yourself complaining because your food delivery is 5 minutes late, or the heating in your apartment is making a funny noise, just take a moment. Picture this little wooden box. Feel the itch. You can't scratch. Hear the wind that never stops howling. And be grateful. Be profoundly, deeply grateful that you are not here. It's the simple, beautiful, magnificent fact that you don't have to sit in the dark, listening for the sound of a twig snapping, with a piece of sharpened steel in your hand. The sound, let's start with the sound. It's the only thing that proves you're still here, still real. A rhythmic, grinding scrape. Fish. Shish-shish-derisk. The whetstone in your gauntleted hand, sliding down the length of your gladius. It's a sound that belongs to you. A tiny mechanical heartbeat in the vast, roaring silence of the north. Shh. Asterisk. This is your job now. Or part of it. The part you do when you're not actively dying of boredom or hypothermia. You are a maintenance man for a government-issued killing machine. And that machine is you. The sword is just an accessory. A brutally effective, but ultimately replaceable, part of the system. Fish. Asterisk. Let's talk about those gloves. Warmth is a luxury commodity, and you're about as far from the luxury market as a man can get. No, these are your work gloves, thick leather studded with iron rivets over the knuckles. In a pinch, they're a weapon, a way to turn your fist into a sack of broken teeth. But mostly, they're just heavy, clumsy. They make every simple task feel like you're trying to assemble a child's toy while wearing oven mitts. The leather is stiff with frozen damp, and it smells faintly of old blood and rust. A smell you've come to associate with your paycheck. You press the stone against the steel. The blade is already sharp. You sharpened it an hour ago, and an hour before that. But the motion is a comfort. It's a ritual. It's a prayer to Vulcan, the god of getting things done with fire and hammers. Shh! Asterisk. The sound is hypnotic. It's a tiny, abrasive whisper against the roar of the world outside. Out there, beyond the thin wooden walls of your box, is the wind. And the wind is not just wind. It's not a pleasant summer breeze. This is a primordial force, a physical presence. It batters the flimsy structure of your watchtower, making the whole thing groan like an old man getting out of a chair. It finds every single crack, every poorly fitted plank, and it injects a needle of pure, concentrated cold directly into the small of your back. It has a voice. This wind, it doesn't whistle. It moans, a low, desolate sound that seems to carry the accumulated misery of this entire God's forsaken island. Sometimes it shrieks, a high, piercing wail that makes the hairs on your arms stand up and your gut clench. Shapes moving in the dark, faces in the swirling sleet, but the wind sounds an awful lot like screaming. And you're in a place where screaming is a perfectly reasonable response to just about anything. Now, let's talk about your accommodations. Welcome to your exclusive top-floor suite, with panoramic views of utter desolation. This watchtower is a masterpiece of minimalist design. We're talking open concept living, taken to its logical and deeply uncomfortable conclusion. Maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. Maybe the architect was a man named Decimus Frugalis, probably a man who believed that comfort leads to complacency, and that the best soldier is a miserable one. By that metric, you are on your way to becoming a The walls are rough, hewn planks, nailed together with what seems like resentful haste. The gaps between them are not a design feature. They are an invitation for the wind, for the rain, for the endless creeping damp that has become your constant companion. You can see your breath, not just when you exhale, but as a permanent, shimmering cloud that hangs in the air around your face. The floor is no better. More planks, with more. It's a constant, dizzying reminder of how far you have to fall. Sometimes you drop things. A piece of dried fruit, a small coin. You watch it vanish into the darkness below, and you don't even curse. It's just an offering to the mud, a small sacrifice to the grasping soil that seems to want to pull this whole sorry structure down. Your primary source of light and heat is a small charcoal brazier in the corner. Let's call it It's a clay pot filled with glowing embers that produce a pathetic amount of warmth and a truly impressive amount of smoke. The wood you've been given is wet. It was probably a living tree this morning. When you put a new piece on the fire, it doesn't burn. It sizzles. It weeps and hisses, releasing a thick, acrid smoke that stings your eyes and coats the back of your throat with a greasy film of soot. It smells like a funeral pyre for a bog monster. The good news is, the bad news is, it does this by making the entire interior of the tower completely uninhabitable for any creature with a functioning respiratory system, including you. You have a choice: freeze in the clean, sharp air near a gap in the wall, or huddle over the brazier and slowly asphyxiate in your own personal chemical fog. Most nights, your lungs feel like 2 dried leather bags full of grit. You've developed a cough. Shh. Asterisk back to the sword. It's a standard issue gladius, the Pompeii type, a short, broad-bladed thing designed for stabbing, not for fancy, swashbuckling duels. This is not a gentleman's weapon, it's a tool for close-quarters butchery. Sever arteries. And like your shield, your helmet, and your own life, all on loan from the Emperor, to be returned in good condition. It feels like an extension of your arm. A parried axe swing from a Britannian chieftain who had more beard than sense. This little chip, halfway down, that was from hitting a shield boss, so hard your arm went numb. You hold the blade up to the flickering light of the brazier. A grim slash of a mouth, the face of a man who has been staring into the dark for too long. Who is this person? You try to remember the boy who signed up in Gaul, the one who believed the recruitment posters, the promise of adventure. He wouldn't recognize this tired, hollow-eyed creature. He wouldn't want to. But what is there to see? Outside the circle of your pathetic firelight, there is only blackness, an absolute hills, bogs, forests of stunted, wind-blasted trees, the unknown wilderness, as the surveyors so poetically call it. To you, it's just the place where things that want to kill you live. Every rock, every twisted tree, every patch of sucking marsh seems to radiate a sullen, ancient hatred. At night, it's worse. You can only imagine it. Every rustle in the heather is a raiding party crawling on their bellies toward your ladder. Your state of your eyes, there is only you, a sword and a profound sense of being the loneliest man in the entire universe. A heavy ringing void where you can suddenly hear the blood pounding in your own ears. It's a silence that feels expectant, like the whole world is holding its breath, waiting for you to make a mistake, waiting for your fire to die down, waiting for your eyes to close for just a second too long. You try to keep your mind occupied. You count. You count the rivets in your armor. You count the number of days until your next rotation off this cursed wall. The number is always too high. You recite the names of the gods. You recite the names of the girls you knew back home. You try to remember the taste of your mother's bread, but the memory is faint, like a story someone else told you. The only taste you can summon is the sour, vinegary tang of the posca you drank with your evening meal. Ah, the food, the fuel for this imperial machine. You get a ration. Your first task after a long day's march or construction work is to grind your own flour. It's a gritty, dusty business that works its way into your clothes, your bedding, and your lungs. The resulting flour is coarse. You mix it with water and a little salt to make a flat, dense bread that you cook on a hot stone or in the embers of the fire. It's less a foodstuff and more a long-term dental plan with a 100% chance of future extractions, not the nice, crispy strips you're thinking of. This is salt-cured pork fat. It's greasy. It's incredibly salty. And after a few weeks, it takes on a rancid flavor that makes you question your life choices. You chew on a piece, and the salt makes your already dehydrated body cry out for water. You also get cheese. A hard, dry cheese that smells like old socks and could be used to chock a wagon wheel and lentils. Endless, flavorless lentils boiled into a grey mush that coats your tongue and sits in your stomach like a ball of lead. Sometimes you get lucky. A foraging party comes back with some game, a skinny deer, or a tough old boar, or maybe you buy something from the local Britons who are brave enough or desperate enough to trade with the conquerors, a few wizened apples, some eggs. These are moments of unbelievable luxury. You savor a single boiled egg like it's a feast sent from the gods. You eat it slowly, making it last, trying to burn the simple, clean taste into your memory before you have to go back to the grey mush and the salty fat. And to wash it all down, Posca, the legionary's friend, sour wine or vinegar, really mixed with water and sometimes some herbs to mask the taste. But it's vaguely antiseptic. You build it on vinegar, grit, and the crushed hopes of young men. Fish. Asterisk. The stone passes over the steel. A spark flies off. A tiny fleeting star in the smoky dark of your hut. It dies before it even hits the floor. A segmented plate armor, it's also a torture device. The metal plates dig into your shoulders. When it's cold, the metal leaches the warmth from your body with terrifying efficiency. It feels like you're wearing a suit of ice. When it's hot, a rare and theoretical condition in this part of the world, it becomes an oven. You're never not wearing it, on duty, on patrol, even when you're digging ditches or building fortifications. It becomes a part of you, a heavy, awkward, and deeply uncomfortable exoskeleton. You learn to sleep in it. You learn to perform basic bodily functions without taking the whole thing off, which is an art form in itself. The constant weight reshapes your posture. Legionaries don't stand straight. They have a permanent forward hunch, a result of years of carrying a shield in one hand and leaning against the weight of the armor on their backs. You are being physically, permanently altered by your job. And the smell. You wipe it down. You oil the metal to prevent rust, but you can never get the smell out of the leather linings. It's the smell of old sweat, of damp wool, of fear. It's the smell of you, after a few months. But when a new recruit arrives, fresh from the sunny fields of Italy, you see the way his nose wrinkles when he gets close to the veterans. You see the look of dawning horror on his face. And you remember, that's what I smell like. The stench of empire. A snap your heart gives a painful lurch. Every muscle in your body tenses. You are suddenly, painfully awake. The boredom is gone, replaced by a surge of pure, cold adrenaline that tastes like metal in your mouth. You reach out and slowly, carefully, place the whetstone on the small shelf beside you. Your hand closes around the bone hilt of the gladius. The familiar weight is no longer a comfort, it's a promise, a threat. You listen for the sound that shouldn't be there. The sound of a foot on a ladder rung. The sound of a rope scraping against wood. The sound of a drawn bowstring. There's nothing. Just the wind and the blood hammering in your ears. Is it your mind playing tricks on you? The paranoia, or are they out there, crawling through the heather, their faces painted with woad, their long knives held between their teeth? Are they looking up at you, at this pathetic little box of light, and smiling? You don't know. That's the real torture. The not knowing. The constant, every sound is a potential death sentence. This isn't a battle. A siege on your sanity. You could shout. You could raise the alarm. The shame would be worse than anything the Britons could do to you. The mockery from the other men. They'd call you spook or rabbit. A moment of fear could ruin your reputation for the next 20 years. Assuming you live that long, so you stay quiet. You listen. A shape that is slightly darker than the surrounding darkness. You blink, and it's gone. Was it ever there? This is the job. This is the reality of holding the frontier. This is the sitting in a box freezing. Less of a habit, more of a necessity. Fish. Shasterisk. The sound is different. It's no longer a monotonous drone. It's the sound of a man getting ready for work. It's the sound of teeth being sharpened. Fish. Shh. Asterisk, you think about home. The sun on your face, the smell of baking bread and olives, the sound of laughter that isn't laced with desperation. It feels like a dream, a life that belonged to someone else. Or did you imagine it? You are a cog in a great machine, a tiny replaceable part of Rome's grand imperial project. Your purpose is not to be happy. Your purpose is to stand here on the edge of the known world and keep the darkness at bay for one more night. Or to die trying. The fire in the brazier sputters, casting long dancing shadows that writhe on the walls like captive spirits. The wind screams, and you continue your work. Fish. Asterisk. The edge is perfect. It's ready. And so are you. You think, let's continue. The sound is your world now. Fish. Shk. Shh. Asterisk. A gritty lullaby in a world made of damp wood and encroaching darkness. Your hand, encased in a segmented iron gauntlet. The Feymanica Fey moves with a practiced mechanical rhythm. Some nights, you do. The gauntlet is cold, not the crisp, clean cold of a winter morning back in Etruria, but a deep, wet cold that feels like it's sinking into your bones. It's the signature cold of Britannia, a special premium brand of misery reserved for the Empire's most far-flung, ill-advised real estate ventures. The iron smells of rust and old sweat. When you flex your fingers, the plates grind against each other with a sound like insects chewing on metal. Fish. Asterisk, you are alone. Utterly, profoundly alone in a way that city folk can't even begin to comprehend. This isn't the quiet of an empty villa at midday. This is the active, listening silence of the wilderness. A silence that's waiting for you to make a mistake. Your world has shrunk to the size of this wooden box, a masterpiece of military engineering, if the goal was to build the most efficient possible container for human despair. It's about 6 feet by 6 feet. You can touch both walls if you stretch. The Romans who designed the Colosseum apparently sent their apprentices here to practice with leftover lumber. It's an oak, which is to say, it's full of holes, gaps in the floorboards let in a steady, insidious draft that licks at your ankles, gaps in the wall planks, warped by the ceaseless rain, create perfect little viewing windows for the wind. Each gust of that northern gale finds its way inside, a phantom intruder that probes and whispers. It carries the scent of pine needles, wet earth, and something else. Something wild and vaguely threatening. The smell of a world that doesn't care about aqueducts or Senate decrees. The smell of everything that isn't Rome. In the center of your little kingdom of dampness, a small brazier glows. It's more smoke than heat. The wood is wet. The trees, the ground, the air, the people. You suspect that if you cut a native open, they'd bleed rainwater. When you first arrived, you thought the constant dampness was a temporary condition, a seasonal quirk. That was 2 years ago. You've forgotten what it feels like to be truly dry. The logs in the fire don't burn. They surrender. They hiss and spit and bubble, releasing pockets of steam and a thick, acrid smoke that stings your eyes and coats the back of your throat. The light they cast is a nervous, flickering thing. It makes the shadows in the corners of the box dance and writhe. Sometimes, when you're tired, and you are always tired, the shadows look like they're trying to form shapes. Figures, long, thin limbs and faces with too many angles. You blink, and they're just shadows again. Shh. Shh. Asterisk, the blade is starting to get sharp. You can feel it with your thumb, a delicate, dangerous kiss of steel. This short sword is your only real friend out here. It doesn't complain. It doesn't ask for its share of the rations. It doesn't talk about the wife and farm it left behind in Gaul. It has one simple, honest purpose. Like you, unlike you, it was designed perfectly for its job. The Faegladius Hispaniensis Fediensis, a masterpiece of brutal efficiency, not for elegant dueling. It is a tool for close, ugly work. For stabbing, you're not meant to slash with it. Your centurion, a man whose face looks like a slab of granite that lost a fight with a chisel, explained it on your first day of training. Find the space between the ribs. He'd grunted, his breath smelling of sour wine and garlic. Push, don't think. Just push. It feels like putting a knife through a leather bag full of warm porridge. He wasn't wrong. You've done it 3 times. The memory doesn't haunt you with guilt. That's a luxury for poets and philosophers. No, it haunts you with the sensation, the wet, thick resistance, followed by a sudden give, the sound, a soft, as if they'd just been reminded of a terribly important appointment they were about to miss. So you sharpen. You sharpen because a dull blade requires more force, more effort. It can get stuck, and in the frantic, muddy chaos of a skirmish, stuck is a synonym for dead. The wind howls, a low, mournful sound, like a great beast in pain. It's less a wall and more a dare, a line drawn in the dirt. You stop sharpening for a moment. You hold your breath, straining your ears to hear past the wind and the fire. There, a sound. Was it a branch, snapping under the weight of the wind? Or was it a footstep? You are no longer a bored soldier passing the time. Your eyes, accustomed to the dim orange glow of the brazier, are useless for piercing the inky blackness outside the Watchtower's murder. Holes, so you listen. The wind is a liar. It mimics things. It carries the sound of voices where there are none. It makes the trees groan. It shrieks and gibbers and whispers your name. You've seen good men, strong men, broken by the wind on this wall. They start talking to it. Then they start screaming at it. Then, one day, they just walk out into the mist and are never seen again. The official report calls it desertion. Everyone knows it's a form of surrender. You tell yourself it was a branch, an animal, a deer. But the part of your brain that's responsible for keeping you alive, the ancient lizard part, isn't buying it. Pictures fueled by the stories the veterans tell around the barracks fire. They don't talk about the Caledonian tribesmen as soldiers. They talk about them as if they're monsters from a half-forgotten legend. Men who paint themselves blue with woad until they look like demons birthed from the twilight. Men who fight naked in the freezing cold, screaming like banshees. They don't fight in formation. They don't understand disciplined lines or tactical withdrawals. They just come, a screaming, painted tide of fury, emerging from the mist and then vanishing back into it. They say they take heads. They say they weave the entrails of their enemies into the manes of their horses. They say they can run over the boggy ground so fast it looks like they're floating. The good news is, most of it is probably exaggeration, propaganda designed to keep new recruits like you terrified and alert. The bad news is, most of it isn't all of it. You've seen the bodies brought back from patrols that went wrong. Your hand tightens on the hilt of the gladius. The leather is worn smooth from your grip. You slowly, quietly place the whetstone on the small wooden shelf next to you. The movement is fluid, practiced. Not a single wasted motion, no sound. You rise from your stool, your knees cracking in protest. Your whole body is a symphony of quiet aches. The dampness has settled into your joints, a constant, grinding pain that makes you feel 50 years old. You are 21. You try to remember what it was like to run without pain, to wake up in the morning without every joint screaming. You can't. That person was someone else. In another life, a life with sunshine, you creep to one of the narrow slits in the wall. The air that hits your face is shockingly cold. Like it smells of rain and infinite, empty space. You press your eye to the opening, and you see nothing. A perfect, absolute black. A void. You could be floating in an endless abyss. And that's the real terror of this post. It's not the enemy you can see, it's the one you can't. It's the knowledge that out there, in that suffocating blackness, something could be watching you right now, 10 feet from the base of your tower. Motionless, patient, painted in shades of night and mud, waiting for you to get careless, waiting for the fire to die down. For a split second, you flinch back from the slit, your breath catching in your throat. You squeeze your eyes shut, then open them again. You force yourself to look. Nothing. Just the wind. Just your mind. Frayed and worn thin by weeks of this. Weeks of solitude, bad food, and the constant, low-level hum of fear. A wedge of cheese so hard and salty it makes your teeth ache. And a small water skin of fey posca, fey official drink of the Roman army. The budget, friendly alternative to wine. It's essentially vinegar water. It's supposed to kill bacteria and keep you hydrated. You think of home. You try not to. But in moments like this, it's impossible. You think of the sun on the hills of your village, the smell of baking bread from your mother's oven, the taste of a ripe fig, warm from the tree, bursting with sweetness in your mouth, the sound of laughter that isn't desperate or laced with gallows humour. These memories feel like they belong to a stranger. They're like scenes from a play you saw a long time ago, faded and unreal. He didn't mention the part about the perpetual drizzle, or the chilblains, or the soul, crushing boredom punctuated by moments of sheer pants, wetting terror. He didn't mention that civilizing the savages mostly involves standing in a wooden box, slowly going insane, while the savages in question are probably tucked away in their huts, warm and dry, laughing at the stupid Romans sitting out in the cold. Who's the real savage here? The man living in tune with this harsh land? Or the man sent thousands of miles from home to freeze in a box because an emperor he's never met wants to draw another line on a map? That's a dangerous thought. You push it away. Thinking gets you nowhere. Thinking leads to the wind. Sickness. Action. You pick up the whetstone. Fish. Shh. Shh. Asterisk, the sound is grounding. It's real. It's a simple task with a clear purpose. Make the metal sharp. That's it. That's the whole job. Your focus narrows again to the steel. A small nick near the hilt from where it parried an axe blow during that last ambush. You remember the jolt that ran up your arm. You remember the face of the man swinging the axe. His beard was braided with little bits of bone and metal. His eyes were wide with a kind of ecstatic rage. You don't remember killing him, your body just did it. The training took over. Punch, twist, pull next. It was all a blur of mud and screaming. You run the stone over the nick, smoothing it out, erasing the memory. The fire spits again, a loud crack that makes you jump. A shower of orange sparks erupts, and for a brief, brilliant moment, the entire interior of the hut is illuminated in stark, bright light. In that flash of light, you see the rat. A huge, sleek thing. Its fur wet and matted. For a heartbeat, the two of you are frozen, inhabitants of the same miserable little world, caught in a tableau of light and shadow. The rat is gone. Your dinner companion has already helped himself. You feel a surge of irrational white, hot anger. You want to scream. You want to smash something. You are a Roman soldier, a cog in the great grinding machine of empire. And cogs do not scream. They do not smash things. They perform their function silently, dutifully until they break. You place the gladius across your knees. Your iron. Clad fingers are stiff with cold. You look at your hands. The hands of a farmer's son. They should be holding a plough, not a sword. They should be calloused from working the earth, not from the hilt of a weapon. What would your father think if he saw you now? He was so proud when you took the coin, when you put on the uniform. My son, a legionary. He'd boasted to everyone in the village. He imagined you marching under sunny skies in Gaul or Greece, part of a glorious parade. He didn't imagine this. He couldn't. His world didn't contain this kind of cold, this kind of darkness. You wonder if you'll ever see him again. The odds are not in your favor. The 25, you can be killed by disease, the camp fever that sweeps through the barracks, a delightful cocktail of dysentery and typhus. You can be killed by a training accident. You can be killed by the sheer grinding misery of it all. Your retirement plan is a plot of land in some newly conquered territory if you survive. A premium feature that requires you to not die for 2.5 decades. It's a high bar. The fire is dying. The wet logs have finally given up the ghost, collapsing into a pile of sullen, glowing embers. The temperature in the hut drops immediately. The cold, which had been held at bay, now floods in aggressive and absolute. The darkness deepens. The shadows in the corners merge into one solid mass. You should add more wood. You know you should. This is how it gets you, not with a painted warrior screaming in your face, but with the quiet, the cold, and the slow, steady erosion of your will to go on. It's a siege against your mind, and tonight you feel like you're losing. It picks up the whetstone. Asterisk a protest against the darkness. You are not a farmer's son anymore. You are not a frightened boy thousands of miles from home. You are the rock against which the barbarian wave is supposed to break. You are a tooth in the mouth of the wolf that is Rome. You are a soldier, and your job is to be sharp. You will not think about the cold. You will not think about the rats. You will not think about the ghosts in the wind or the eyes in the dark. You will think about the edge of this blade. You will think about the precise angle, the right amount of pressure. And you repeat it over and over. A mantra against the encroaching night. You sharpen your sword, not just for the enemy you might face, but for the man you are trying to be alone. In the dark, at the edge of the world, the sound has become a part of you. Fish. It's the only thing you can control in this universe of damp wood and howling wind. Each backward stroke, a quiet curse on the land that requires it. You are not polishing a trophy. You are not lovingly tending to a family heirloom. a glorified. The muscles in your back burn with a low, familiar fire, a counterpart to the pathetic flames sputtering in the brazier beside you. Asterisk, the gauntlet you're wearing isn't for show. It's not some gleaming piece of it's stiff, blackened leather, reinforced with crude iron plates, and it smells like rust and old sweat. The leather is hard, chafing the skin at your wrist raw, but it's better than the alternative. One slip, one moment of lost focus, and the gladius you're trying to perfect will bite the hand that feeds it. You've seen it happen. A clumsy auxiliary, daydreaming of whatever passes for sunshine in Germania, who laid his thumb open to the bone. His screaming was a valuable, if noisy, workplace safety seminar. So you grip the whetstone tightly, the rough, gritty surface tangible, even through the thick leather. You can feel the vibration travel up your arm, a dull thrumming that seems to echo in your teeth. The sword itself rests across your lap, its weight a familiar burden. It's shorter than the movies would have you believe. It's not a hero's weapon, it's a butcher's tool, a stabbing weapon for close, ugly work. For the press of bodies, the smell of hot blood and voided bowels, for that final, intimate moment when you push it through wool and leather and flesh and feel the grating crunch of it hitting bone. You try not to think about that instead. You focus on the sound, the only sound you're making. The other sounds are not yours. They belong to the night, to Britannia. It doesn't crackle. A good. This fire, fed with damp half, rotten pines scavenged from the perpetual mud, outside. Fay hisses, Fay it spits, and sizzles like a cornered snake. Each pop sends a tiny ember arcing into the gloom of your wooden box, dying before it can land. The smoke it gives off is thick and acrid, clinging to the back of your throat. It fills your tiny world with a grey haze that makes your eyes water and stings your lungs with every breath. You smell of it permanently. It's baked into your tunic, your cloak, your hair, your very skin. Out there, in the great black emptiness beyond the palisade, the wind is alive. It's not just moving air. It shrieks and moans around the corners of your watchtower, a sound of pure, elemental grief. It makes the whole structure groan, the wooden beams complaining like the joints of an old man forced to march. Sometimes it whispers, a soft, sibilant sound that slides through the cracks in the wall and raises the hairs on your arms. It sounds like a secret you were never meant to hear. Sometimes it howls, a deep predatory roar that feels like it wants to rip the turf roof from over your head and expose you to the indifferent stars. You've been in the army for 10 years. You signed up in Hispania, in a sun-drenched town where the worst thing that could happen was the wine turning sour. You were young, stupid, and thought the uniform looked impressive. You imagined marching through Gaul, maybe seeing the marbled wonders of Rome. You pictured parades, cheering crowds and girls throwing flowers. No one mentioned this. No one mentioned a remote timber fort on the literal edge of the known world, where the sun is a pale rumour and the rain has 12 different names, all of them miserable. No one mentioned a place the gods themselves seem to have Your posting here isn't a tour of duty. It is a cosmic joke. You are the punchline. Fish. Asterisk, the blade is starting to get an edge. You can see it, a faint, silvery line along the dark, oiled iron. A line of potential. You run a gloved thumb gingerly along the flat of the blade. Not the edge. It feels cold. A deep, profound cold. that has nothing to do with the temperature. It's the only part of you that can escape this box. You think of your last leave 6 months ago, a week in Leguvalium, Carlisle, to the locals, a bustling, muddy frontier town, trying desperately to pretend it was Rome. It had a bathhouse. That was the main attraction. You remember sinking into that water, the heat, a blissful shock. You remember scrubbing away weeks of accumulated grime, watching the water around you turn a dark, satisfying grey. For a few hours, you didn't smell like wood smoke and damp wool. You smelled of olive oil and steam. You could feel the grit of it on the bottom of the tub. You probably came out cleaner, but you also probably picked up a new and exciting skin fungus. The good news is, you get to visit the bathhouse. The bad news is, it's a public petri dish, a subscription service for rashes. The watered-down wine that still cost a week. The noise was a shield against the silence of the wall. You sat with your contubernarium, your squad of 8, your work family. You drank, you gambled with worn knuckle bones, and you lied to each other about women you'd known and fights you'd won. Gaius, the big dumb ox from northern Gaul, got into a fist fight with a trader over a spilled drink. The centurion put him on latrine duty for a month, a terrible punishment, but at least the smell was consistent. Marcus, the quiet one from Etruria, just stared into his cup the whole night, probably thinking about the farm he'd left behind. He gets that look a lot. That 1,000-yard stare that says he's already halfway to being a ghost. You wonder if you look the same. You pause the sharpening. The silent, your own ears ring. All you can hear now is the hissing fire and the screaming wind, and your own heart, a slow, heavy drum against your ribs. Boredom is a physical thing out here. It's a weight, a thick, syrupy substance that fills the hours. You've traced the patterns the water stains make on the ceiling. One looks a bit like a deformed rabbit. You've mentally rehearsed every drill, every formation, until the Latin commands are just meaningless sounds. The real enemy isn't the painted tribesman out there in the dark. Not really. The real enemy is this, the crushing, soul-destroying monotony. It grinds you down more effectively than it makes you careless. That's when they get you. During the 100th hour of nothing, when you start to believe nothing will ever happen again. That's what the Optio told you. The Picts don't need to be strong, he'd said, his face a mask of scar tissue from a previous less successful campaign. They just need to be patient. So you fight the stupidity. So you fight the names of the emperors, Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula. That one was a piece of work. Claudius, Nero. Another winner, Vespasian. You try to remember a world of marble and poetry and sunshine. Everything in the army is built by the lowest bidder. Your sandals. Everything in the army is good enough procurement policy. You grimace, carefully placing the gladius and whetstone on the floor and trying to stand in the cramped space. You bang your helmeted head on a low-hanging roof beam. A dull clang echoes in the small room, and a shower of dust and dried moss falls into your face. You cough, sputtering, the dust tasting of dirt and decay. Of course, a premium feature of this rustic cheek accommodation, you stretch, trying to work the knot out of your calf muscle. The deep ache in your lower back from the weight of the phylorica segmentata, faith a phantom itch between your shoulder blades that you can never ever reach. Your body is no longer your own. It is government property, and like all government property, it has been poorly maintained and is slowly falling apart. A narrow vertical opening just wide enough to see through, and just wide enough for an arrow to find. You press your face close to the opening. The cold is immediate. It's a physical blow. The wind bites at your exposed cheeks and nose. Torches on the main wall, a glow from the Praetorium. The moon and stars are smothered by a thick blanket of cloud. There is no horizon. The land and sky have merged into a single, lightless entity. It's like staring into the bottom of a well. You know, logically, what's out there. It's a landscape of rolling, treeless hills covered in coarse grass and purple heather. It's dotted with bogs that can swallow a horse whole and streams the colour of rust. There are no friendly farms, no welcoming villas. Just the occasional, hostile-looking stone hut puffing smoke, which you are under strict orders to avoid. This is not a land to be conquered. It's a land to be endured. A vast, empty canvas for your worst fears to paint on. And the things that live in it. The Caledonians. The painted people. The Picts. You've never seen one up close. Not a living one, anyway. You've seen bodies after a skirmish. Smaller than you'd expect, wiry. Covered in strange blue tattoos that swirl and twist like snakes. The veterans tell stories. They say they fight naked. They say they scream like birds of prey as they charge. They say they don't feel pain. They say they can appear from the mist like phantoms and vanish back into it just as quickly. They say they take heads. You try to dismiss it as barracks talk. Scary stories told by old soldiers to frighten the new recruits. But you saw the aftermath of the supply convoy that was ambushed last spring. The headless bodies of the drivers, left where the centurion called it a psychological warfare tactic, a messaging campaign. Every muscle in your body goes rigid. That wasn't the wind. That wasn't the groaning of the tower. It was a sound, a sharp, clear sound from out there. In the nothing, the sound of a dry twig breaking under a heavy foot. Your heart, which was a slow drum. You strain your ears, listening past the moan of the wind. Silence. Only the hiss of the fire, the howl of the gale. Was it an animal, a deer, a wolf? Or was it your mind? Some of them had to be sent back south, their nerve completely gone. You let out a breath you didn't realize you were holding. It clouds in front of your face. An animal. Right now, you feel less like a rock and more like a small, wet piece of gravel. You turn from the slit, your temporary courage evaporating as soon as you are no longer facing the dark. Soon, you'll hear the tramp of sandals on the wooden walkway. It will be Quintus and his replacement. Quintus, with his perpetually runny nose and his complaints about the food, will be a welcome sight. He'll grunt a greeting. You'll grunt one back. You'll pass him the small lead token that proves you completed your watch. The ancient equivalent of clocking out. A deeply unsatisfying ceremony. It's a masterclass in space. You know that Lucius talks in his sleep, crying out for his mother. You know the specific, eye-watering scent of Decimus's feet after a long march. It's a level of intimacy you never asked for. A forced team-building exercise that lasts for 25 years. The good news is, you have a roof over your head. The bad news is, it leaks. And it's infested with mice who are bold enough to run across your face while you sleep. The bad news is, the straw is 6 years old, flattened to the hardness of a plank, and home to a thriving community of fleas and other, more ambitious insects. There are other people. A reminder that you are not, in fact, the last man on Earth. You'll get back, Strip off your armor with a sigh of relief and hang it on its peg. You'll lie down on your flea-bitten mattress and pull your rough wool blanket up to your chin. The blanket always smells faintly of damp dog. You won't sleep deeply. No one on the frontier sleeps deeply. It's a series of short, nervous naps, but it's rest, of a sort, just a little longer. You wipe it down with an oily rag, protecting it from the damp air that seeks to rust everything. The motion is automatic. Maintain your gear, maintain your life. You sit back down on the stool. The wood groans in protest. You lean your head back against the rough wall of the post. You can feel the vibration of the wind through the timber, a constant, agitating hum. You close your eyes, just for a second. A mistake. With your eyes closed, the wind finds a new note, a high-pitched whistle that sounds unnervingly like a signal. The fire sputters violently, as if a sudden draft has hit it, and then you hear it again. Closer this time. Not a snap, a scrape. The fatigue, the boredom, the cold, all of it is burned away by a white, hot surge of adrenaline. Your hand tightens on the hilt of your sword. The leather feels slick with sweat. You hold your breath. The scraping sound comes again. Maybe 30 paces out. Maybe closer. You look at the water clock. Quintus should have been here by now. He's never late. Being late for watch relief is not a minor infraction. It's a failure that could cost lives. He's late. The realization hits you with the force of a physical blow. Something is wrong. Something is very, very wrong. He's not coming. Maybe he tried. Maybe he and his replacement are lying somewhere on the duckboard path between here and the fort. Their throats cut. The scraping sound stops. The silence that follows is worse. The wind still howls, but it feels like background noise now. You are a tiny flickering candle in a hurricane of darkness, and something out there is trying to blow you out. Your entire world has shrunk to the four walls of this wooden coffin. You grab your shield from where it leans against the wall. The heavy, curved rectangle of wood and leather feels reassuring. It's a piece of wall you can carry. You slip your arm through the straps. You creep back to the lookout slit, your gladius held tight in your right hand, the point angled slightly downwards. Ready, you press your face to the opening again. Peering into the suffocating black, your heart is a trapped bird, beating its wings against your ribs. And you see it. A flicker. For a split second, a torch is lit out in the darkness. Not 50 paces away. A face that will be burned into your memory until the day you die. But, you know, he's there, and he's not alone. It's older, harsher, because in the absolute crushing silence of the northern frontier, sound is everything. Right now, there are 3 sounds that make up your entire universe. The first is the fire. It hisses. Each pop is a tiny wet explosion, a protest against being burned at all. It doesn't warm you so much as it simply makes one small patch of the universe slightly less frozen, at the cost of making your eyes water and your lungs feel like you've been gargling soot. This is not a fire for comfort. It's a fire for survival, and it's doing the bare minimum. It comes screaming out of the Caledonian wilderness, a vast empty expanse of black that your maps simply label, "Here be dragons." Or more accurately, "Here be people who will wear your intestines as a scarf." The wind hits the thin wooden walls of your watchtower, your glorified hunting blind, with the force of a battering ram. It howls. It shrieks. It's a constant, grinding assault on your sanity. It's the sound of pure, elemental loneliness. You can feel the vibration in the floorboards, in the bones of your feet. The whole structure groans under the assault. A symphony of creaks and moans, like a ship in a storm. A ship moored in a sea of frozen mud and regret. You find yourself wondering, not for the first time, if the whole flimsy box is about to be ripped from its foundations and sent tumbling across the moor. A pathetic wooden die cast by an indifferent god. And then there is the third sound. The only one you control. Fish, shk, sh, asterisk. It's the sound of your whetstone against the blade of your gladius. The iron gauntlet you wear. The fey manika fey feels clumsy, but you need it. The cold is so you hold the sword's hilt tight. The worn leather a familiar shape against your palm, and you draw the stone along the edge. Again and again, a slow, deliberate, rhythmic scrape. It's not a sound of aggression. Not really. It's a sound of meditation. A mantra in steel and stone. Fish cafe. I am alive. Fish cafe. It's the only thing that keeps your mind from fraying completely. Each pass of the stone is a small victory against the encroaching chaos. The wind can howl, the fire can sputter. But this blade will be ready. This is your job. Not just watching, but being ready for the moment, when the only sounds left are the wet, tearing kind. It's not a beautiful sword. Short, broad, designed for one purpose, to be thrust quickly and efficiently into the soft parts of another human being. It's an ugly, practical piece of engineering. A human-sized can opener. You've seen what it does. You've smelled the coppery, hot stench that follows it. You've felt the unsettling judder as it finds its way between ribs. This isn't your first tour, or your second. You're what they call a veteran, which is just a polite term for a man who has managed to not die yet. You're an auxiliary, not one of the true-born citizens from a sun-drenched villa in Italy, complaining about the wine. No, you're from Gaul. You were recruited, a word that sounds suspiciously like conscripted, when the centurion is 6'4" and has a neck like a tree trunk, from a village that was probably just as damp and miserable as this. But at least it was fey damp and miserable village. You traded one form of mud for another in exchange for regular pay, a retirement plan that might actually happen if you survived 25 years of this. And the grand prize, Roman citizenship. The ultimate loyalty program reward, suffer for a quarter of a century at the frozen edge of the known world. And you too can have the privilege of being a full-fledged member of the society that sent you here to die. It's a fantastic deal when you don't think about it too hard. So you try not to. It seeps through the soles of your leather sandals, the Fey Fey, which are, without a doubt, the single worst piece of footwear ever designed by a sentient species. They are essentially military-grade flip-flops, designed for hot, dry Italian roads. Here, in the constant damp and cold of Britannia, they are instruments of torture. Your feet are perpetually wet, perpetually cold, and feel less like parts of your body and more like two frozen blocks of meat. You're forced to drag around. The wool wrappings you've stuffed into them are soaked and abrasive, rubbing your skin raw. You can feel a blister forming on your heel. a hot little pocket of pain that promises to make tomorrow's patrol an exercise in exquisite agony. The cold crawls up your legs, past the leather straps of your greaves, and settles deep in your bones. Your tunic is coarse wool, and under it you're sweating, but it's a cold sweat. The moisture is trapped by your armor, the Phaelorica segmentata Phae, those overlapping iron plates. It's brilliant protection against a sword thrust. It's also a terrifically efficient personal refrigerator. The chill of the metal seems to leach the warmth directly from your skin. You can feel it, a constant, clammy pressure on your shoulders and chest. You have an itch right in the middle of your back, a maddening, persistent prickle that you couldn't possibly reach without completely dismantling your entire publicly funded iron shell. It will be there for the next 3 hours. It's a steamy, loud, crowded building that smells of sulfur, stale sweat, and hundreds of unwashed men all stewing in the same lukewarm water. It's less a spa and more a form of social waterboarding. So mostly, you make do with a quick splash of cold water from a bucket when you get the chance. The result is that you carry your own unique aroma. It's a complex bouquet. The base note is old sweat, mingling with the scent of damp wool, the faint, gamey smell of the leather straps of your armor, and the ever-present wood smoke that clings to everything. It's the signature cologne of the Roman army. Eau de misery. There's the terrible, sour wine, the Fay Posca Fay that they give you, which tastes like vinegar's angry cousin, but gets the job done. There's the shared misery, which is its own form of company. But out here, there is nothing. Beyond, that the world ceases to exist. It's an unnerving sensation standing on a tiny island of reality surrounded by an ocean of pure nothing. Your eyes, trying to make sense of the void, start to play tricks on you. You staring because that's in the wall, and the longer you stare, the more the nothing starts to take shape. Is that a flicker of movement over by that clump of gorse? You lean closer to the slit, your breath fogging in the frigid air. Your eyes strain, trying to pierce the gloom. The shape is still there. A crouch, low to the ground. It wasn't there a minute ago. Or are you? One moment you're half asleep dreaming of warm bread. Your hand tightens on the gladius. The leather of the hilt suddenly slick with sweat. The picks, the painted ones, the locals. The reason this wall, this whole miserable line of forts and towers, even exists. Stories from the patrols that came back with fewer men than they left with. They don't fight like soldiers. They don't line up in neat formations and clash shields. They are ghosts. They emerge from the mist and the mud, silent as shadows, covered in terrifying blue patterns and the blood of their enemies. They move through this broken land like they were born from it. Which of course they were. You're the intruder here. You're the alien. And they are the land's immune system, trying to expel the infection. The centurion's words echo in your head. They will watch you for days, learn your routine, and when you least expect it, that's when they come. You swallow, and it feels like you're swallowing sand. Your carefully constructed shell of professional boredom has shattered, replaced by the raw primal fear of a prey animal that has just scented a predator. One blast, and the patrol from the next tower will know something is wrong. One blast, and maybe, just maybe, the quick reaction force from the main fort will saddle up. But what if it's nothing? What if it's just a deer, or a shadow, or your own exhausted mind conjuring demons out of the darkness? The punishment for a false alarm is unpleasant. It involves a lot of shouting, followed by several weeks of the worst duties imaginable. Latrine duty suddenly seems like a promotion. They'll call you spookus. They'll mock you for seeing ghosts. The shame would be almost as bad as the punishment. And yet, what if it's real? The silence from your tower means everything is fine. One blast of the horn means war. The difference between the two is your guess. Your gut feeling, no pressure. You slowly, carefully, place the wet stone down on the small wooden stool. The sound is unnaturally loud in the tense silence. You grip your gladius, your knuckles white. The platform is where you're supposed to be. It offers the best view. It also offers the best exposure. The sounds are deafening. You poke your head above the floor of the platform. The wind hits you like a solid wall. It's 10 times worse up here. It rips the air from your lungs and tears at your eyes, making them stream. The cold is unbelievable, a physical pain that shocks your system. Your helmet feels like a block of ice clamped to your skin. But the view, the moon, which has been hiding behind a thick bank of clouds, chooses this exact moment to make a brief, dramatic appearance. A sliver of cold, white light breaks through, and for a few precious seconds, the landscape is illuminated in ghostly monochrome. The world is rendered in shades of grey and black, and you see it. A stunted, twisted thorn tree, its branches bent into a permanent crouch by a century of relentless wind. In the deceptive dark, its shape had mimicked a predator. In the sudden moonlight, it's just a piece of wood, pathetic, defeated, the source of your heart, pounding gut, clenching terror. The relief that washes over you is so profound, it makes you feel weak. It's a dizzying, nauseating wave. Your legs feel unsteady. The adrenaline drains away, leaving behind a shaky, exhausted hollowness. You almost laugh, a nervous, choked sound that the wind immediately snatches away. A tree. You were about to start a border incident over a piece of scene. The moon vanishes again, plunging the world back into absolute darkness. But it doesn't matter. You slowly climb back down the ladder, your limbs feeling heavy and clumsy. The wind howls, unimpressed by your emotional roller coaster. You place the stone against the steel. Fish. Asterisk, the sound is different. Now, it's not a mantra anymore. Asterisk, it feels desperate. Fish. Asterisk, because the tree was nothing. But the fear was real. The fear was the most real thing in your entire world. And you know with a cold, sinking certainty in the pit of your stomach that the fear will be back. It will be back in 10 minutes. When a different shadow seems to... It will be back in an hour. When the wind makes a sound that sounds almost like a whisper. It will be back every night. For the rest of your tour. For the rest of your 25 years. If you're unlucky enough to live that long. You're a prisoner in a box, slowly going mad. The good news is your shift is only 6 hours long. The bad news is it's only the second hour. You close your eyes for a second, just a second, leaning your head back against the rough wooden planks of the wall. You think of home. You try to picture a warm, sunny day in Gaul. The smell of baking bread from your mother's oven. The taste of fresh wine. You try to remember the face of a girl you knew, the way her hair smelled of hay and sunlight. But the images are faded. They're like old frescoes. The colors bleached by time and misery. It's hard to hold on to them. The reality of this place is too strong. The cold, the damp, the fear. It's a stain that gets into everything. You open your eyes. The only reality is the feeble orange light, the oppressive dark. You look down at the blade. It's sharp enough, but the motion is the only thing that makes sense. Fish. Asterisk, I am alive. Fish. Asterisk, I am a soldier. Fish. Asterisk, I am so very, very tired. The fish K of the stone against the steel is the only part of this world, not to the wind, which moans through the ill-fitting planks of this wooden box like a pining ghost, not to the fire, which spits and hisses in its brazier, a sullen, damp creature refusing to give up its warmth without a fight, not to the endless, dripping damp that has become the very air you breathe, the texture of your skin, the taste on your tongue. Number this sound is yours. Fish K. The flat of the whetstone slides down the length of your gladius. A slow, deliberate pull. The iron gauntlet you wear feels less like protection and more like a cold metal parasite fused to your hand. It makes the motion clumsy, but you've done this 1,000 times 10,000. The muscle remembers even when the mind is numb. Fish. Fehi, you flip the blade. The other side, a deep, profound cold. You can see your breath plume in the air, a tiny fleeting cloud of life in this high-up tomb. There are no grand stone ramparts, no soaring testaments to the glory of Rome. This is the Gask Ridge, a line of glorified wooden sheds connected by a muddy track. They have the audacity to call a road. It's less a border and more a suggestion, a dotted line on a map that the locals seem to treat with profound indifference. Your watchtower is a premium model, which means the roof only leaks in 3 places instead of 5. And the rats are merely audacious, not yet unionized. The wind hits the north-facing wall with a sudden violent shove. The whole structure groans. The bad news is, you'd land in Caledonia, and even your corpse wouldn't be safe. Fish. Fade, the edge is getting there. You run your thumb, the one on your ungloved hand, gingerly along the side, not the edge. The skin is chapped and cracked, the nail bed packed with grime. You can feel the almost imperceptible burr of the metal, the promise of a clean cut, our woolen cloak, a throat. And doubt, your centurion Optio Marius, is fond of bellowing, is a latrine pit you dig for yourself. Marius, a man whose face looks like a slab of granite that lost a fight with a chisel, and whose primary mode of communication is spitting. He believes morale is a finite resource, and his job is to hoard all of it for himself. Fish. Fay, you pause. It's not the gleaming, polished steel you see on parade grounds in some sun-drenched provincial capital. This is a working tool. It's stained with old rust. You can never quite scrub away, pitted from hurried parries against inferior steel, nicked from that one time you used it to pry open an ammunition crate because you'd lost the damned crowbar. It has a history written in scars. Just like you, your gaze drifts past the blade to the arrow slit that passes for a window. There's nothing to see, and out there filled with things you're paid not to understand, only to kill. They call them the Caledonians, the painted ones, a scouting party, flitting between the gorse and crags like phantoms, naked to the waist even in the biting wind, their skin a terrifying swirl of blue patterns. They didn't move like men. They moved like wolves, all loping strides and unnerving speed. They stopped, and for a full minute they just stared at your fort, not with anger or fear, just a cold, unnerving curiosity, like a butcher sizing up a pig. Then they were gone, melting back into the landscape that birthed them. Three blasts is a posthumous performance review. The loneliness is a physical presence. It sits next to you on the bench, sharing your miserable fire. It's heavier than your shield, colder than your helmet on a winter morning. You despise the lack of privacy, the smell of 200 unwashed men crammed into a space built for half that. But up here, you'd kill for it. You'd welcome a pointless argument about whose turn it is to clean the latrines. Anything to break the crushing monologue of the wind and the fish-cay of your own blade. You've been on watch for 4 hours. Or is it 5? The water clock in the corner, a pathetic little pottery vessel dripping into a bowl, is your only companion. Each drop is a tiny hammer blow, marking a moment of your life you will never get back, spent staring into an abyss. Time here doesn't pass. The medic, a Greek fellow with the delicate touch of a blacksmith, stitched you up with a horsehair needle and told you to thank the gods it missed your gut. He then poured sour wine into the wound to cleanse it. The memory of that searing white-hot agony is more vivid than the face of your own mother. It aches when the damp sets in. Here in Britannia, it never stops aching. The motion is automatic now. You're not just sharpening the sword, you're sharpening your focus. You're trying to hone the ragged edge of your own sanity. Because the dark plays tricks. The wind is a master of mimicry. You held your breath, listening silence. It's not about the fighting. The fighting is rare. It's the waiting, the not knowing, the slow grinding erosion of your nerves. They don't need to storm the walls. They just need to wait for the walls inside your head to crumble. A few denarii, most of which goes straight back to the army to pay for your premium food, your artisan, crafted sandals that fall apart in the mud, and the nails for your hobnailed boots. The rest you gamble away or send to a brother in Hispania, who is probably using it to buy wine you can only dream of now. You signed up for 25 years. 25, the number feels impossibly large. A mountain you have to climb one miserable dripping day at a time. Retirement is a plot of land somewhere you've never heard of. A pension that will barely keep you in bread. And a body full of scars that sing a chorus of pain every time it rains. It's the grand prize in a lottery you were forced to enter. The fire sputters violently, and a plume of thick, acrid smoke billows out. It stings your eyes, making them water. You cough, a dry hacking sound that echoes in the small space. The wood is green. It's always green. The foraging parties can't go too far from the fort, so they chop down whatever is closest. The result is a fuel that fights you every step of the way, consuming more energy than it produces. It's like trying to burn a bucket of water. The smoke smells of resin, and underneath the smoke there are other smells. The base notes of your existence, the sour tang of your own sweat, trapped inside layers of wool and leather for days. The faint, gamey odour of the salted meat you had for your evening meal. A meal that had the texture of a shoe sole and the flavour of regret. The metallic scent of the damp iron of your armour, and beneath it all, the smell of the earth itself, of wet dirt, of decay. It's the smell of a world that is slowly, patiently trying to rot you. You put the gladius down. The sharpening is done, or you're done with the sharpening. The edge is keen enough, a solution to a very specific set of problems. Now what? Now the silence rushes back in. Except it's not silent. The wind picks up again. A low, guttural roar this time. The whole tower sways, a sickening, boat-like motion. This is not what the recruitment posters showed. They showed sunshine. They showed cheering crowds. They showed eagles and glory. They did not show this intimate, terrifying, and profoundly boring conversation with the abyss. Your stomach rumbles, a hollow, painful cramp. The salted meat and hardtack biscuit sit like a rock in your gut. You crave something else. Anything else? A piece of fruit, a fresh loaf of bread, a cup of wine. That doesn't taste like vinegar. That's been strained through a dirty sock. The smell of olives and hot dust. The taste of a fresh fig bursting with sweetness in your mouth. That memory is a dangerous thing. It's a warm room in a house that burned down. To linger there is to make the cold of the present unbearable. You push it away. A scratching sound. It comes from the corner, near the trapdoor that leads down the ladder. You freeze. It's a deliberate, rhythmic sound. Fey scratch. 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 Fey a rat. It has to be it's a rat. It's a listening silence. You are listening, and you have the sudden chilling certainty that whatever is on the other side of that trapdoor is listening too. You strain your ears, trying to filter out the roar of the wind, the frantic thumping of your own heart. Is that breathing a slow, shallow breath that isn't yours? Number, it's your imagination. The curse of the solo watch. Every guard has these stories of seeing shadows move, of hearing whispers on the wind. It's the fatigue, the isolation. Your mind starved of stimulus. You should get up. You should walk over to the trapdoor and lift it. Prove to yourself that there's nothing there, just the top of a ladder and a long drop into darkness. A simple action. They're like ghosts. You picture a face, smeared with blue woad, peering up from the darkness of the stairwell, eyes filled with a cold, ancient hatred. Your breath catches in your throat. You are utterly, completely alone. Your horn is on the other side of the room. A distance that now feels like a mile, even if you could reach it, even if you could sound the alarm. It would be too late for you. Sentry lost on the northern perimeter tower secure. Your replacement would be here by midday, complaining about the draft. This is the reality of empire. It is not the Senate debates or the triumphal arches. A single, terrified man in a box, whose name no one will remember, whose only purpose is to die loudly enough for someone else to wake up. You are the human cost. The fine print on the grand contract of civilization, Fey hump. Fey. A soft, heavy sound. All the boredom, all the misery, all the cold and the dampness. It was all just a prelude to this single terrible second. Your entire life has narrowed to this point. The air in the tower feels thick, unbreathable. The fire seems to shrink, its light cowering in the face of the encroaching darkness. Slowly, deliberately, you pull the gladius from its scabbard. The sound is shockingly loud in the tense silence. It's not the confident fishcay fill of sharpening. It's a dry, metallic rasp, the sound of a final decision. You get to your feet. Your joints scream in protest. The mail shirt, the Phaelorica Hamata Fey, feels impossibly heavy. Each ring is a tiny weight pulling you down. You take a step, then another. The floorboards creak under your hobnailed sandals. You are a symphony of noise. Any hope of surprise is gone. There is a small iron ring set into it for lifting. It seems like the most malevolent object you have ever seen. You can't hear anything now but the blood pounding in your ears, the wind, the fire. They've all faded into a distant hum. There is only you, your sword, and the wooden door between you and the unknown. For a heartbeat, you think of just standing there, of waiting. Let whatever it is make the next move. But that's a coward's death, even if Rome is an abstract concept, a cruel joke told by a distant emperor. You are still a soldier, and a soldier acts. You take a deep breath, the cold air burning your lungs. It scrapes against the frame as you lift it, opening a square of deeper, more absolute blackness into the room. You raise the sword, your knuckles white, your arm trembling, not from fear, but from a surge of pure, violent adrenaline. You are ready to bring it down, to plunge it into the painted face you know is waiting there. And you see it, two small, gleaming eyes, staring up at you from the darkness. They are not the eyes of a man. They are small, and they are terrified. A large badger, fat from a summer of feasting, has somehow shimmied its way up the ladder, perhaps seeking shelter from the wind. It blinks at you, frozen in the sudden light. Its nose twitching, it had been scratching at the door, then put its paws on it to try and force it open. Fay-hump, the air rushes out of your lungs in a long, shaky sigh. The tension drains away, leaving you weak, hollow. Your arm lowers the sword. The badger, deciding it has made a serious real estate error, scrambles, turns, and clatters back down the ladder with surprising speed. You hear it scrabbling away into the night. You are alone again. You slowly lower the trapdoor. Fay-hump, Fay-you. Stand there for a long moment, staring. Then a sound escapes your lips. A short, strangled bark. It's a laugh. A bitter, joyless laugh. You almost died of terror because of a badger. A badger. You walk back to your bench and sit down heavily. You look at the fire, at the darkness outside, at the miserable little world you inhabit. 25 years, 13 to go. An eternity of nights just like this one, waiting for a painted man or a confused mammal to come calling. And you realize the truth. The glorious Roman Empire isn't conquering Britannia. It's just squatting here, in the damp and the dark, slowly losing its mind. And you are it. So what have we learned? We've learned that the life of a Roman soldier on the frontier wasn't one of epic battles and shining glory. It was a masterclass in misery. It was a of being physically and psychologically dismantled by boredom, weather. You, sitting there in your climate. The absolute crushing weight of being the only human being for miles, with nothing but a sharpened piece of iron between you and a world that actively hates you. Could you handle the gnawing damp that gets into your bones, the food that turns to stone in your gut, the creeping certainty that your life is a rounding error in someone else's grand calculation of power? The romantic image of the legionary, the disciplined conqueror, is a lie, a beautiful, powerful lie, but a lie nonetheless. The reality was much smaller. It was colder. It was wetter. And it was, above all, profoundly, miserably human. Next time you complain about your Wi-Fi dropping out, or that your food delivery is 5 minutes late, just take a moment, smell the damp, feel the cold iron of the sword in your hand, and the gnawing emptiness in your soul. Be grateful for your boring, comfortable, badger-free life, because the alternative wasn't an adventure.